The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Triversity Talk. I am Wendy Stewart, and my co-host tonight is the one and only
Simone Krause. How are we doing, Wendy?
Well, it's so good to see you again, Simone, virtually, and great to have you back as the co-host. For those of you who don't know Simone, Simone is a woman of trans experience. She is the former VP of Triversity, which this program is named after, and co-founder and president now of Homeward Sussex organization. That's a new non-for-profit that she has formed with Ashley Craig, and Ashley's going to be our guest. They're going to talk about that, okay? And she's also involved with Trans Affirming Alliance of New Jersey, Morris County Pride, Gender Equality. She's been on panels there, and she's working on her soon-to-be published memoir. And we're very excited to have Simone, of course, not only as our co-host, but she was very intrinsic in finding people and being in the show We're Here, the new show that is on HBO, which many of you have already seen. And tonight I call this episode A Star is Born. I'd like to introduce you all to Ashley Craig, who I know as a law officer, but who ended up taking and really running away with the show for HBO. Her transformation was just compelling, riveting, the discoveries she made about herself, and what a show like that does really to be airing and finding people in rural communities all over the country. So without further ado, Ashley Craig.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
I'm doing good. Great. How are you guys?
We're great. Have you recovered from your HBO show?
Yeah, it was drag hangover is real. Let me tell you. That took about 3 or 4 days for me to really get back to normal. But what can I say? I mean, when you have that kind of experience and then you get that kind of show, you know what I mean? There's nothing like it. So I think I finally just about recovered, but there's still moments where I don't really, think it's real.
Right. You probably pinch yourself and can't believe it happened. And I do want to get into all the intricacies of the show because I loved it. I kept saying I loved your performance, but you weren't performing. It was what was so compelling. It was so real, and the things you said and the things that you discovered. And Simone, your backstory as well with We're Here is really quite incredible. I just want to give a little bit of backstory about you, Ashley. You work in law enforcement.
I do.
And to be on TV, boy, is that a stretch. Now you would have never figured that out, would you?
No, absolutely not. I've been on the job for about 6 years now.
Wow.
I love my job. I followed in my father's footsteps. He was a law enforcement officer for 25 years in a local county. So I grew up, and he was always my hero. He'd come home after the longest days, soaking wet, covered in mud. But hopefully a lot of the times it was good stories, success stories of how he was able to help somebody, and other times it was stories in which he was there on the worst days of people's lives.
Of course,
and he really made a community impact, and that's what I wanted to do.
What makes you able to do this? The gratifying parts I totally get. but there can often be really bad parts with sad endings. And as an officer of the law, you can be put in, you personally, in a dangerous. I could never do it. I couldn't face fear that way. You understand? What makes you think that that you're going to be okay?
Absolutely. So, I actually just got my girlfriend actually mentioned this. We've been together for about 7 months, and she told me not too long ago, probably around New Year's, that she said that she would never date a cop ever. And the
Right.
reason being is that you never know if they're going to come home or not at the
That's
end of
it.
their shift. We see horrific things happen all the time, and we do put ourselves in danger to protect and serve our community. And at the end of the day, I think from the experiences that I've had and from hearing about my father and his career and seeing what my friends go through, my coworkers go through, at the end of the day, no one puts this uniform on and wears that badge without realizing that a day could come where we could be seriously injured or killed in the line of duty. However, we do it because truly deep down, we want to serve and protect our communities.
Right.
So I think of course there's been scary moments and some really terrible things seen, but at the end of the day, we know that we're doing our best for the people that we serve and protect.
And I from the time I met you, I admired you for doing that, not just because you're a woman, just because of your commitment. There are sacrifices that go with being a law enforcer. It's interesting. I was going to ask you what your partner thought of that. That would be upsetting to me because she's right. You don't know if the person that you love is coming home at night, and it can be very unnerving for the other person.
Absolutely. Law enforcement officers come from a law enforcement family, regardless of whether they've had people serve or not. Spouses, children of law enforcement officers. I remember vividly many a night where my mom and I would sit in the garage when my dad got a tough call or he was out on a call that he knew was dangerous. And he'd always call mom and say, listen, I love you. And I'm going to come home. And then he'd hang up and we'd wait for hours sometimes in the middle of the night, just waiting for him to come home,
Right.
And that's why I think I had a little bit of a upper hand in knowing what I was getting into. But my family has supported me 100% in everything I've done. But my partner also does as well, which is very nice to know.
And right, you would need that 100% support. How do you go about building trust in the community?
It's hard, right? When you look at the history of the LGBTQ community, and law enforcement, Pride started as a riot, right? We know that. And I completely respect that. We also know the storied history, when it comes to people of color and law enforcement community. One of the biggest things that bothers me about being a law enforcement officer is the fact that some people fear me simply because of the uniform.
Right.
And I never wanted that to happen, right? I never wanted that to be how that's never how I saw my father. Right? My father was a knight in shining armor. He was a hero.
Right.
And that's what I wanted to be to other people. I wanted to be that person who was there on the worst day of your life, or there to help you, when stuff got real. So it's hard. But in the same breath, the only thing that we can do is have good people who are in it for the right reasons. Number one, weed out the people who aren't there for the right reasons.
Right.
And number two, be out and be visible.
Yeah.
Support the community the best we can, be involved in community outreach initiatives. And I always say, like, come and sit and have a cup of coffee with me. And you realize that the reason that I wear the uniform every day is to help support, accept every member of my community.
I love that. And thank you. First of all, thank you for everything that you're saying. Because I was the kid that grew up, with like, oh, the cops, they're great. They'll take care. You looked at that uniform and it was something comforting. And we know what the last years have been like, right? But I can tell you, living in New York City, which had gotten so bad, and people say bad things about our new mayor. He came from a police officer background, but I can tell you what he has done. The subways had gotten so bad, and you all have heard it. He's got now cops on every platform. I'm on the subways all the time. I have never felt I can't believe this has become part of my conversation with people that I'm like, I'm so happy to see the police on the platform. Ashley and Simone, I go up to them. I talk to them. I thank them for being there. I tell them what it was like, even honest to God, you guys, 6 months ago. Bad. You'd see violence. You guys were reading about it in the paper, and a lot of that, where crime is still high, but it's gone down a lot. And I know you're not in New York City, but I believe that when people see you, Ashley, they see you as somebody that's gonna help them.
I sure hope so. That's my goal every day.
Right. So I want to get into the HBO show, and I'm tossing the ball to you, Simone, because you were involved in the very beginnings of helping them pull this together. What was the story behind that?
Well, what happened is I got an email forward to me about the show, and they were looking to get up into the Monroe, New York area. So since I was close to Monroe, I answered, did a couple interviews, and developed a rapport with the casting director and eventually with the director. I was actually trying to steer it towards Milford, PA, but then they came back and they said, well, we already did one in Pennsylvania, in Gettysburg. So then it went right to New Jersey, and I stole it. I am going to be blatant about it. I stole it from New York. I kept it here. It was a lot of work. I know I included your name, Wendy, also.
No, I spoke with your producers. I wanted them to see the I call it the gender bender fashion show that I do at the Phoenix.
Yep.
However, it didn't matter if it was in PA or Jersey. The type of people that you showed on the show and their struggles, I think, is what the show is about, And, when people think of Jersey, a lot of the time they think of like Jersey City or Newark or whatever. You move into the more rural areas, and you all know this better than anybody else. It's a whole other ball game. So, Simone, you're what we call a fixer in the industry.
I was actually called an asset. So it seems like a spotlight to them.
It's the same thing.
But the greatest thing is that I got to see the backstory. I got to see the way they filmed. I got to meet the producer, the executive producer. He came to my house. I met him for coffee.
Right.
But what really was critical is I got to see two of the queens, especially Eureka with her drag child, and just the interaction there. And the two drag queens, Bob and Eureka, when they were dealing with people in the public, and especially Eureka, where we did the one scene that ended up on the cutting room floor at the windlass.
Yes.
She was there, and these two young girls came out, and they were at a repast for their aunt. And they knew Eureka, who was right away. And she started talking, and then their mother came out and mentioned that they were there. She probably took 20 minutes out of her time and life to make those girls feel so special. It really just opened my eyes to how much these drag queens really care about people.
Right.
And especially their drag children. I mean, be able to see the intimate affection between them, like, lessons and whatnot, life-changing for me.
Right. So it really did make it. So prior to that, Simone, maybe you weren't so aware of how drag queens could affect people's lives in a positive way. And you saw it. I'm glad you saw it with your own eyes, because also Eureka and Bob, the drag queen, I have known for forever. He's just so damn funny and so brilliant, and has a really great dry delivery on stage when he talks. It's like just very ineffective. Bob the drag queen could almost be wearing like a suit and a tie and loafers, and then delivers. And Ashley, what I love so much that was the person that they paired you up with.
Yes, that was incredible. I mean, I loved all the queens. I'd watched the show, when Ashley Rohr from HBO had reached out to, basically do an interview. I hadn't heard of the show before, but then I had watched every season, every episode, and I loved all the queens. But I was secretly hoping that Bob would be my drag mom.
Right. I just love it. So Simone, like, you were with them from the very beginning when they chose to come to the Vernon area, because you're the one that told them on it.
Oh yeah, it was great. And when let me know they were coming here. I actually was doing a happy dance in the kitchen. I was so, okay. We didn't get a chance to fly the pride flag at the municipal hall this year.
You
And-
always, wow, because you always,
we got it at the high school. The Board of Education did it and one of the ambulance corps, but they denied us there. And I had an opportunity to bring it here. It was like my personal little vendetta to bring back. Like, okay, you can't let us fly a pride flag? Guess what's coming here? But it really gave a good show of the way that the subtle hate that is in Sussex County. It really highlighted that.
I don't think it's so. What did they say? Still water runs deep and dirty. I think, to me, it's just very, very much out there. Not amongst all of us, but you scratch the surface, and that goes through Milford, Pennsylvania, or any rural area. Boy, it's really ugly. It's ugly what comes out. Did they, when they got you to come on board, Simone? What did they tell you they were trying to achieve?
Well, what it is, basically, it's trying someone who is going through issues that, to help them with that, or someone with a life-changing path that they're just starting to encounter. So it kind of helps them with that. I mean, I wanted to be on the show in the worst way, but when I read all of that,
you were.
Well, I was in a way, but I wanted to be one of the featured. Right. But I realized I walked through the valley of death. I already conquered all my demons, so it was for others, and I was glad that I got to suggest 2 people for them, which was really good.
And also Simone and Ashley, for the future, right? In casting, they need to have the story that's really going to make people's eyes pop, which is the most extreme. And you're right, Simone. You're a woman of trans experience. You've conquered whatever you needed to, and you're very balanced where you are right now. They often look for, a story that is going to make people open their eyes and say, oh my God, that's happening to me, But I do wonder if they had come like 3 years ago and met you, it could have turned out a whole totally different way too. Do you know that?
Oh yeah. Well, in fact, the story that they did down in Florida with the older transgender woman in white.
Yeah.
They actually mentioned to me saying, we already did that. That's, so that took me out, which was, look, it worked out. Everything worked out for the best, honestly.
Well, that's it. And it absolutely usually does. So Ashley, by the way, what's your Boston Terrier's name?
This is Luna.
Luna, is it Luna? Luna's cute. Look at you. Luna. Yes, you're on TV.
I'm saying it.
Hello, Luna. So, for you, this is so far from what you do for a living. Really, so far from your backyard. I mean, you're totally aware of RuPaul's Drag Race, the kinds of shows HBO did, but then all of a sudden, you've been cast to be in one. That's pretty heavy duty. What were your first feelings when, how did they work with you? Did they do like a couple of interviews?
So I had one interview, and then we didn't hear anything for like 6 months. Like we heard absolutely nothing.
Right.
So I was like, all right, like that was great. I'm glad we interviewed, but okay, they're not coming, which is, I was excited for them to come because I think for the community, it was exceptionally needed. And I know how much work Simone put into, basically giving all the information about Sussex County and really pleading with them as to why they needed to come here.
Right.
It wasn't until June that I got a call from Ashley Rohr, and I was actually picking up dog poop, courtesy of this one, in the backyard. And she calls me, so I answer it, and she's like, "Hey, I just want to let you know we're coming to Sussex." I was like, "Oh, that's great." And she's like, "And you're going to be one of the queens, one of the cast members." And I was like, "Oh, like,
wow."
Okay. So I remember, like, I dropped the bucket and the rake and everything like that, and I walked over to my mom, like, "Hey, we're going to be on HBO." And my mom literally dropped everything, and she just yelled. I mean, we have an acre of property out here, but I'm sure the neighbors probably almost called the police because they were like, "What is going on over there?" Wow. And I just remember that night we actually spent like 3 hours looking at songs. Mom was dancing on the kitchen. My dad picked the drag name that night, Phoenix Flies, and it was just.
Your dad picked the drag name?
He named me. Yep, he did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That in itself, honest to God, is the story to me. You know, the stuff that you don't see that was behind the scenes. Your dad doing that, because your parents, of course, have never been even remotely involved in anything like that. It does go to show you, and it's something I've always believed. I believe the media, which everyone attacks these days, media used in a good way can really enlighten people, educate people. Okay, and it's done in a good way and really make a difference in people's lives.
Absolutely.
So what? Okay, so now you found out you're gonna, be shooting this. You probably had to sign non-disclosure agreements and things like that, right?
So we were gag ordered from day one.
Yeah.
And that was the funny thing between Simone and I, because she was gag ordered, I was gag ordered. So she's like, hear anything? I'm like, nope. You? She's like, nope. So we were playing that game for about a week, and then I was like, listen, yes, okay, they're definitely coming. She's like, I know. I'm like, okay, we're on the same page. So, and then it was the scheduling for the actual filming.
Right.
Planning for that.
Now, I want to ask you the two other, I was going to call them contestants, but the two other people they profiled. Simone, did you cast those people as well, or they found them? Or?
I recommended one and not the other. Somebody else recommended that person.
Who was the person you recommended?
Well, it wasn't the one that used the bad words.
Oh, no, the cursor.
It was Eureka's drag daughter.
Okay, so wait, that one of them was pretty straight and the other was bisexual. That was
Eureka's drag daughter.
So that was, which one was that?
The married person.
The straight guy.
No. The straight person. No, that was Shangela's child.
Oh, yes. Right. That was Shangela's
troubled child, I'll call.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I recommended. Actually, there was a third one, but that person did not want to do it, so it kind of tumbled down the stairs until they got to this person. But I got to say one thing about Bob and the power drag that I saw when they did that. When they went up to the car show, we pulled a recon and went up there and watched. We
did
off to the side, and I'm watching Bob when he's walking around. The three drag queens are in, and there was this older gentleman and his granddaughter walking by, and Bob's walking down, and the granddaughter recognized Bob, and the grandfather steered the grandchild away like Bob was like radioactive medical waste.
Oh yeah, like if you even come in like the circle of that person, you're going to catch something.
Right. 45 minutes later, when they were leaving, I can see up underneath the umbrella, I can see this long arm out, which is Bob's, and Bob loves to take selfies with people, and I look, and there's that same grandfather with the granddaughter doing a selfie with Bob, and I was like, how wonderful was that to be able to witness that?
Yeah. That is actually a great moment. I love really what I'm hearing, because people do these shows, but it's not often that you know the people that do these shows. I know the both of you, and I couldn't make your opening, your screening, but of course I watched it with two friends of mine, Richard and Steven, on their big screen. And it was just, there were so many moments in the thing. And a lot of it's got to do with, because I also know both of you. So behind the scenes, were there any moments that the drag queen with their drag daughters was there friction with Shangela and maybe the person that she was going to be transforming?
I don't know if there was anything behind the scenes. I mean, on camera, there was absolutely some friction. So I can only imagine off camera, there probably was as well.
Right. Did anyone threaten to quit in the middle of it? Decided it's a bad idea?
So honestly, one of the good parts, I think, after seeing the episode air, was the fact that all three of us were only in the same room for maybe a half an hour tops, between all of the different scenes. So I had very little reaction with either of the other cast members.
Right.
And so I didn't really get to see the interactions between, the queens and their drag daughters as much as the producers or the other staff and cast members did. So I really can't speak to that, to be honest with you.
Right. And it's how things are shot, by the way. You just brought up a good point. you can make a film, and if you're working on your scene and you don't even know what the other people are doing. So yeah, you never get to know. My favorite scene with you, Ashley, was when you were brought into Brooklyn to the lesbian bar, which I know. Tell me the name of it again.
Gingers.
Gingers, right? Everyone knows Gingers. So, how is that scene going to be presented to you? You had never been to a bar in Brooklyn before, right?
Yeah, no. So I had been to my place is 626 in Jersey City. I love that place.
Okay.
So like if I was going to a drag bar or a gay bar, that's where I'd go. But I had never been, I'd never driven in the city. I had been to the city maybe 5 times, in my entire life before the filming of this. So when I had told the producers that, they said, well, you live so close. And I'm like, I know, but it's like, you just don't go, I don't know.
I tell people that all the time. Like when I tell them what goes on in Milford, Pennsylvania, they're like, really? I'm like, hour and 40 minutes from New York City and hundreds of miles away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So living in Sussex, where it's an excuse to be late to high school because of a tractor, you know what I mean? my idea of a good time was not driving 2 hours to go to a club or a bar and like that.
Right.
So the producers had said, we're going to surprise you with a trip. So it's like, okay, like I'm game for anything. So they said, well, would you be comfortable driving in the city? And I was like, not on camera, because I've never done it before. So no. So they said, all right, well, Bob's going to drive you, and we don't mean to leak it, but we're going to go to New York City. We're just not going to tell you where yet. So at that point, we had to wait until I got to meet Bob to really talk about where we were going to go, what we're going to do. And, she had said at that point, listen, we're going to the city and we're going to Ginger's. So that's how it was set up for me. And then Bob did, we met at the cast member hotel, and we drove into the city, and it was an incredible experience.
It was an incredible experience. I'm curious, how did those women, they had to be told something when you came in with Bob the drag queen, right? They had to be set up in some way.
No, that's the funniest part, is the table that we were at was set up. So that was some of Bob's contacts and friends from the city. But the people that we talked to, I always call them the Australians, because that's how they went and kind of explain themselves.
Right.
But basically, when you walk in, it was the craziest thing, because we walk in with 3 different cameras, a mic crew, lighting people. And we just entered the bar. Like, they knew we were coming, obviously. But
Right.
we get out of these, 3 black Tahoes. We walk into this bar with a full camera crew. No one has any idea what's going on, right? Other than the table that Bob has, preset and prearranged. So a lot of people were like kind of whispering and, what's going on and what are they doing? And
People can be hostile sometimes too, especially in New York with that.
Well, I mean, I had a hostile experience at the end of the filming, but it was not related to the filming. Let's just say that. So basically, Bob, got up and he started talking to a bunch of the different tables, and he's like, "Let's go meet people." So we stood up, we started walking, just meeting people, and the 3 women that I met, the Australians per se, they were the ones who ended up making the show.
Wow. Oh, okay. So some of the other women had just ended up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. So we met a couple people that night, but they chose to use that clip.
So from the time you were introduced to Bob the drag queen, like, what was the relationship for you early on? You've never had an intimate relationship with someone like this in a surreal situation. What were you feeling, and what was that like for you?
I mean, from day one, when they pulled into the driveway with all of the equipment, I mean, there had to be at least 7, 8 cars, a director, they had a bodyguard, they had everything. So that was just surreal in itself. And I'm not really used to the spotlight, right? I honestly prefer to remain in the shadows. You know what I mean? Like, I'm all about
sister. I know you're like that. That's why I was like, this is really great.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the reason that I did it at the end of the day was because I knew that it would have an impact on the community, right? I knew that if there was one person out there who would listen to this, and either maybe think about their next interaction with a law enforcement officer differently, or if they shared the same feelings that I was feeling, you know what I mean? That's the reason I did it. Because to be honest with you, when Simone originally called me and said, "Hey, you might be getting a call from HBO," I was like, "Oh God, this is not, this is not me. This is not what I do." But when meeting Bob, I met Bob day 3 of filming. I didn't meet Bob right away. So we'd already done a lot of the interviews and a lot of the cut scenes and that kind of thing. The chickens, I think my chicken Nug Nug had more screen time than the dogs did. But
I love that you had chickens, by the way. I'm like, oh, I didn't know Ashley had chickens. I love chickens.
We have a full petting zoo here. We have 5 cats, 7 dogs, 16 chickens. It's amazing. But when I met Bob originally, it was like starstruck, right? You see Bob perform on television, you see him in the news, right? And then this icon is standing right in front of you and wants to talk to you.
Just a person, just a really wonderful person.
Exactly. So from moment one, we bonded. We were laughing so hard just at Yetter's Diner when we were filming. And
you
then
went to Yetter's. I didn't realize it was Yetter's.
We did. That was where we filmed, was Yetter's, when I first met Bob.
Wow.
And even to the last moment, when I remember saying goodbye to him, and especially too in the right before the show, you actually see it on television. When the lights go down, he turned to me and he said, "I love you and I'm so proud of you." And in that moment, it was genuine. I felt it. I mean, I was teary-eyed, you know what I mean? Because that for me, this entire experience for me was exceptionally affirming, in so many ways. So
I absolutely love it. What did you discover about yourself?
So, to make a long story short, about 2 years ago, there was a couple events that happened that really changed my life, between work and personally. And I hit one of the darkest points of my life. It was one of those things where I just didn't know what was next, if there was a next. And I think, part of what keeps me going is the fact that I do love people so much and that I live for connection. I live for loving the people around me. So finally I hit one day where I'd been off of work for a little while and I went to the doctor. I'm like, listen, I need help. Like, I don't know what's going on. But I can't keep functioning like this. And she connected me with a therapist. And that therapist is actually from Sussex, which is amazing because a lot of the times you meet therapists that around here, that are like, oh, don't worry, we'll fix you. Right. We'll fix you. Right. I've been out as gay for probably 7-8 years now. And there was always just something in the back of my mind that I just couldn't shake. I just wasn't sure what it was. It was that waking up and absolutely hating yourself, looking in the mirror and not seeing yourself. And when I started telling my therapist this, it's not funny, but it kind of is funny in retrospect. She was like, so I'm going to say something and I don't want you to get offended. And I'm like, do you know me? I'm not going to get offended. You can say anything to me. I'm not going to get offended. And she's like, I feel like you're either non-binary or trans. And I feel like we should have that conversation. So we did. We had that conversation. It was incredible. And I left that therapy session like, oh, wow. Like I got answers, but they're really confusing answers. You know what I mean? So I spent a year, not talking to anybody about it because I didn't know how to broach the topic. But then comes my trans mom, my Oracle Simone, who I've known since 2020, who's really...
I love Oracle Simone. I think that's great.
Yes. And, Simone being open with her journey and living so close and answering all the questions, I think that really helped me, have that conversation with my therapist that I don't think I would have had unless I had met Simone. And she had been so open with her journey and struggles and answering questions and that kind of thing. So I didn't do anything for a year. I did tell Simone. She was probably the second person in my life other than my therapist to know. And my therapist was like, listen, we can, tiptoe around this or you can do something about it. But it wasn't until just this past November that I started testosterone, low dose. And luckily I am getting my top surgery next month. It was 9 months of fighting with my insurance and kind of getting the paperwork together and all that kind of stuff. But
Well,
I finally
Simone can help
found.
you with that. She knows how to do all that, right? Wow.
Absolutely. Simone has been absolutely incredible through all of this, giving the resources, giving the guidebook, per se, which we don't have. People in the non-binary and trans community don't have that book of where do you go.
Guidebook, as you know, is the other people that can come along and help you. And by being on the show, by having a relationship with Simone, and I am going to move forward in a few minutes and talk about what you and Simone have formed, but your ability to help other people, because that's what it needs to be at the end of the day. Ashley, the fact that you said there was something in the back there that wasn't right. First of all, you outlined a lot of things here. You're very lucky that you found a great therapist. 3/4 of the people out there are still struggling to find that. The fact that you found one in Sussex County completely blows my, not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's the luck of the draw.
It is 100%.
Right. And I am sure now at this point, you probably feel somewhat as if a weight has been lifted from you.
Oh, 100%. I've been flying on cloud 9 for a long time. But especially since actually the day of the viewing party, January 6th, I got the approval and the okay from my surgeon to schedule.
Right.
So it's all very, very new and very recent, but we are less than a month out from having a top surgery. And I've never felt happier.
Right. And your family's been supportive of you.
Absolutely. There's some questions. There's some concerns. There's all of that.
Of course. I think parents should have questions and concerns just in general.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I respect everyone's opinions and views on it. I think unless you're in someone's shoes who, has these feelings, and who struggled with this, there's some things that I don't understand about it. I just know it's right. So I don't think there's ever going to be an understanding necessarily. But I'm just looking for acceptance. Just celebrate with me. You know what I mean? Right. Just accept it. It's going to be a wild ride, but it's going to be a good one.
Yeah. But you've got Simone, and you're also accepting yourself now. You needed to do this to accept yourself. Thank you, first of all, for that's very deep what you shared, and I really appreciate it. I wanted to let you know that I always thought how not only a beautiful person, how beautiful you are. And when they painted you, you look freaking amazing.
Thank you.
Now you may never do that again, but I have to tell you, I'm like, whoa, girlfriend, where's that war paint? Well, you knew how, I'm sure 20,000, right, Simone? Everyone was telling her how incredible.
It's not what I was expecting to see.
Yeah, no, you're very pretty. But I didn't expect, I'm like, God, I could book her in any club. She could work. She could
absolutely
change her career tomorrow.
I still have my dress and you let me know.
Right. Just the whole thing was gorgeous. And then they coordinated Bob the drag queen in the same colors, the greens on both of you. This is what I pay attention to. But absolutely. it was really such an impact. Now, Simone, we did get to see you. You were in, the audience scenes with your wife, Mary, which were great. What I wanted to say to you, I've had speaking roles in films and ended up on the cutting room floor. Yep. You all know my friend Tim Moss, the actor. He's been on the show, and Tim co-hosts with me. He tells the story, a major role ended up on the cutting room floor. This is just, we hear that, we say this, what does it mean for us? It's disappointing. When it happens to me, it's like, or your relatives that you told you were in this film, and it was like, a split second, and it's like it's your fault, right? Well, why weren't you there longer? Like you did something wrong.
Well, the one thing that really worked out that ended up on the cutting room floor was at the end of the show, and they had people from other seasons, come in, and actually Ashley's mother, Jenny, kind of, Bob invited her up, kind of crashed the stage. Bob saw me, and I have a picture of that being up on the stage. He put his arm around me and said, "I love you for everything you do." And I've never felt so validated. So I have a picture that happened. So
Yes.
it did happen. So yeah, when you get so much out of it, the experience, it was,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm
That's
just
what
glad it
people,
happened.
and I think people need to hear that. Both of you were transformed by it, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
really, really, wonderful. And you both got something incredible out of it. Now, how much did this affect on the two of you going ahead and forming your new non-for-profit, which I want you to talk about? Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. So after the show aired, we started getting messages from all over the world. I mean, it was insane, and it was an outpouring of love and support. But it was also this general sense of wanting a community, right? Not even because someone might have been LGBTQ, but because they were a single parent and
Right.
they didn't have many friends their age or people they could relate to, or they were a couple without kids and they didn't have the play dates and the school events to meet other people, or the people of color in rural towns like Sussex.
Right.
It was that general feeling of being different, in which they felt that they were lacking a sense of community, which is something that I can relate to very well. Simone, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm assuming that you can relate to that as well.
Yes. Yes, I can.
So, long story short, as I was getting these messages, I was like, there's got to be something that we can do, right? We have this momentum from this incredible show, but it can't stop here, right? It would be an absolute atrocity for us to have this spotlight here in Sussex, to have people reaching out for support and for community, and then just be like, oh, yep, sorry, go to the city or go to Jersey City or, find it elsewhere. One of the most impactful things that Bob said to me in our time together, and it's actually on the episode, was when he was sitting in the kitchen and he said, there's only so long that Ashley can look so desperately for a community before she creates one for herself.
Oh my
and if
God.
I'm gonna create a community for myself, you best bet I'm going to create it for other people too.
Right.
So I was laying up one night, like 11:30 at night, and I happened to be on Canva, and I saw this phoenix, and my dad had named me Phoenix Flies, and I was like, oh, that I like that, and I put a circle around it, and then I was just Googling random words like what would this be named, and I came across Homeward Bound, so I cut bound off, and I Googled the word homeward, and its definition is going towards home, right? And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, we have it. We have a community, right? Because aren't we all just trying to find a safe, loving home?
Absolutely.
Right? So I texted Simone manically at 11:30, and I said, listen, when you wake up in the morning, oh my gosh, it was a whole lot of things. I sent her pictures, I sent her all kinds of weird stuff. Sorry, Simone. But I texted her and I said, listen, just give me a call in the morning. I had this random idea. I said, but I'm really excited about it. And I said, I'm going to drop some initial plans and some initial ideas, and then we'll talk. And I guess the rest is history. I mean, we created the Facebook group on December 28th. Today we have 162 members of the group.
Amazing.
We had a virtual pop-in that had 7 people, and an in-person homeward meeting that had 9 people, of all different backgrounds. And people love it because it fills that gap, right? It fills that we don't ask how you're different or how you feel different, right? It doesn't matter.
No, you're just come on home. That's what you're saying. Come on home. We're here for you. I think that's all people really want to hear. We're here. We're making a safe space for you. I love that you're doing it in Sussex. Sussex and places like that represent so many areas in the country. So, you've created it. I hope people that are listening to this show take the lead from the both of you and say, hey, you know what? This is a no-brainer. This is easy. Let's just do it. We've all gone virtually these days. And, I'm very much an in-person person, but like this show wouldn't exist unless I could do it virtually. And by offering people that, you're giving them support, you're giving them a place to go, and you're giving them what we call like-minded people that they can have discussions with. Yes, Simone.
I know when Ashley and I were just before she came up with this idea, and on one of the web pages, Facebook page group she was on, someone came on and was looking for resources in Idaho. So I looked it all up and I sent it to Ashley. Said, here, send it out to them. Here's all the resources they need for trans communities in Idaho. And I think that started to percolate the idea. And because we're really not only finding your own family, your birds of a feather, but resources.
Right.
So that someone who's looking for whatever, if they don't find it with us, they might find a link and it'll be like a spider web. And you could end up, finding something down in Jersey City on a resource there.
Right.
I mean, in fact, I'm going to an event tomorrow night for Garden State Equality where this healthcare map for all of New Jersey is being released, which is something that Mickey Weiss dreamed about doing. So we're trying to tie into all these resources so that you come to ours, you can find just about anything you want.
You want it right. You want to make stuff available to people. But what I'm also thinking, because I read your mission statement, I went to your website and everything. The Homeward thing, there's something very mom pa about it. You know what I mean by that? The grocery store, whatever. And it's simple. It's something that's doable. You could take this idea and really start to spread it homeward, right? Homeward.org all over the country, because the fact that you can do it virtually, the fact that people are suffering in other parts of the country. And by the way, I don't have to tell the two of you, I don't know that that's going to get better. We don't know what's going to happen in 2024. We really don't. I never thought I'd hear myself talking about somebody that said, don't say gay, or that threatens to take children away from their parents that are getting hormones. That's all really scary stuff.
Ashley is a force of nature. So once she started with this, every step, do you want to, Simone, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I'm like, I'm going to help you build this thing. I
see the two of you being able to do this on a really, I love that you're doing it in Sussex, but me, I am a city girl. I'm always looking at the bigger picture. How can more people be helped? What can be set up? The fact that the two of you did this, the idea is something that is easy to me to set up all over the country and be able to offer that. So first of all, thank you for taking the initiative to do this. And I thank you for the 9 people that you were able to help in Sussex County that you may not have even known before, but they happened to hear about you. So that's really great. This is what I call using celebrity to but actually at the end of the day, even before HBO, it's who the two of you are. You're activists, all right? You're support people. You reach out to community in a positive way and, just love what you're doing. Well, I got my little, I'm down now, 2 minutes. So we're going to wrap it up. Ashley, Simone, I'll start with you, Ashley. What would you like to say?
I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to come and speak about the show. It was incredible.
Anytime.
I think that most importantly, I think what I got from the show not only was explaining my journey, but also homeward. I realized that I needed that community as much as they needed a community.
Right.
So thank you to Simone for being my right hand in that. And let's spread it. You know what I mean? Let's spread it, because I know there are people out there that need it.
And Simone, what about you?
I was blessed that I had the opportunity. I was blessed that I ended up in this house and I ran into my neighbor who was Ashley's best friend, and I got to meet Ashley. So everything is interconnected and I'm truly blessed with my life.
And I love that you're both very, very much aware. It really was such a series of events, the way the whole thing came down at the end of the day. And you're right. HBO really birthed Homeward. How about that? And if anybody's listening, somebody should do a story about all of this. It's a great story. It's a great follow-up story. Well, Wendy has to get her picture before we say goodbye. So everybody, cheese. And one more. Thank you both so much. Thank you for everything that you shared. Thank you for what you're going to be doing for the community going forward. Of course, if Triversity can help in any way, absolutely, you reach out to us. Absolutely, you know that's always there. And thank the both of you for being you. And good night. Good night, everybody.